The voice of Husker Nation is on the air. This is Hail Varsity Radio. Insight, opinion, expertise, along with the biggest names talking Nebraska sports. Join in with the show at 402-489-1240 or 1-800-825-5865. Now, here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt and Elijah Herbel.
Welcome to it. Great to be with you on a Tuesday. It's Hail Varsity Radio. We're presented by Currency for all your equipment financing needs. Go Currency. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. Connor Clark is in. And we're excited to talk some spring football. The topic of rioting after your team wins a championship. Thumbs down from me.
And the people on the stream may be rioting here shortly because I flubbed setting up this broadcast for our live stream online, and it said Friday, April 4th, as opposed to Tuesday, April 4th. It was wishful thinking on my part. Don't riot in the stream. I think I have it fixed.
You. We're all hoping this is Friday.
Why did you even say that? I didn't know that until just now.
Let's be honest. We all thought about using a BB gun on ourselves so we could limp to the golf course. That may just be me. I'm excited for every 2 hours I get to do this before I'm showing the door with a box. Totally get it. Mm-hmm. But, hey, it is 73 and the wind hasn't started knocking my wife's crap out back over, so it's golfing weather. That's how I judge whether it's too windy or not to golf.
I just think it's interesting that your first thought of how to get out of work would be shooting yourself with a BB gun.
I probably would have approached it differently.
Yeah, there's so many easier methods of getting out of work.
Next question, any volunteers, and I'll see 4 hands go up.
I'm trying to think. There's got to be better ways to get out of work than shooting yourself with a BB gun.
How? The tournament's done. Right? That was the classic. Well, you can't even really pull the COVID anymore.
You can.
You can.
Depends where you work.
Some dudes would sign up for the dreaded vasectomy during the tournament. That's a bit extreme. Not judging.
Well, I've been thinking about getting LASIK eye surgery, and I've been trying to figure out when the best time to get that would be. So I have a couple days laid up on my couch. But also, I'm pretty sure you have to go like blindfolded for like the first 24 hours, so then you have to do that well too. So we'll see when I get that scheduled what days I strategically miss.
You're gonna, I'm gone that whole week of the Boulder game. Show up and Elijah's gonna be in the front row, dodging Ralphie. I thought you had eye surgery. Yeah,
I would love to see Elijah in an eye patch at the Boulder game. That would be quite.
It'd be kind of funny. You'd have we'd get you a Hail Varsity eye patch. Numbers to get in, 402-489-1240, 402-489-12. Just soil ourselves, says crew. Just to get out of work. Oh, that one was good. That was good. Numbers to get in, 489-1240, 489-1240. Just do it, boys.
We're all taking laxatives right before the show.
First one to fail gets to go to the golf course. Kidding. 489-1240, 489-1240, 800-825-5865. You're welcome to participate in the stream. Oh, that was good. Do so. You can watch the show, Hail Varsity YouTube channel. Also, the Hail Varsity Twitter handle at HVarsity Radio is where you can watch it live, KFOR, Facebook, and Twitter. You can stream us also on the stations you hear, Hail Varsity Radio. On the docket today, Andy Markowski, he'll put a bow on basketball season, get his take on the title game, but more so some of that in-state talent that's finding its way to the transfer portal. How does Nebraska compete? Obviously win, sure, but it's not out of the realm of possibility Nebraska gets a kid to come back, i.e. Sam Griesel. But you have Hunter Salas that's out there, and what are Nebraska's chances compared to some of the other high-profile schools? Nebraska's clearly not keeping kids in state. I don't think it's through lack of recruiting effort. It's just not a desirable hasn't been a desirable program to go to with some of the other options these kids have found. I mean, Virginia's won a national championship. Gonzaga's played for a national championship. So, and Chucky Hepburn, I know they didn't go to the tournament this year, but Wisconsin's pretty much a staple in the tournament. Those are three of your blue chip prospects from the metro and central part of the state. So we'll go there with Andy Markowski, of course, get his take on the women's championship as well, the hubbub on that. In hour 2, Tom Shatel, Omaha World-Herald, going to join us to kick off hour 2. We'll dive into the topic about a live spring game, not just hitting, but how about a live opponent? Eddie Staples and Hugh Freeze broached this. We have some ideas for that. And did you see the footage in Storrs, Connecticut with the UConn fan base? 5 championships the last 25 years. They're really good at basketball. They're in rarefied air with the Carolinas, the Dukes, all those type programs that do well in the tournament and cut the nets down. UConn's been pretty resilient despite who their head coach has been. And what did UConn fan base / student section do? They ripped down a light pole. They abused a van. They busted a door down. Multiple arrests. I'm going to ask both of you, because you're both pretty big pro sports fans. Elijah, if you were in Denver for the Avs last year, would you have taken your partying and celebration that step further? You can plead the fifth. That's fine. Cub fan over there. 2016 is continuing to get more distant, but it's not 1908. Cub fans had a party. I remember when Nebraska and Osborne won the first one. I was in high school. Me and a guy that had been watching Nebraska for years and years, every New Year's Day, we're at one of our parents' houses as a group getting together, and we're like, oh my God, they did it. So there were cigars purchased, and we had a victory cigar. We hadn't been holding on to one for 23 years, but it was O Street, and folks were elated. There was no destruction. There were no benches set on fire. There were no other structures torched. There were no cars tipped over back in the New Year's portion of 1995. It was a lot of beer, a lot of hugs, and a lot of tears for so many Nebraska fans. Not so in Storrs, Connecticut. I don't get the riot factor.
Well, you ever seen the show It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia?
I know of it. I have not watched it.
Very famous scene whenever
look at Philly fan. Look at Philly fan when the Eagles won the Super Bowl.
That's what I'm saying.
That was a nightmare.
And that was a big joke in the show. Is the Phillies were playing in the World Series one year, and the whole gang made riot punch, which is simply fruit punch and grain alcohol.
I mean, are you sure you don't do that for like every football Sunday in that city?
I just brought that up to make it clear.
A point.
Riots are not done in a vacuum. Like it's not just, oh, my team won, let's go riot. There's a combination of factors, namely alcohol and people trying to tell you can't celebrate in the way you want, and then personality. Those three things combined are going to lead to cars being tipped and couches being burnt. So I don't think I can say definitively would I or would I not participate in a riot. But if Nebraska wins a national championship in something, I have some grain alcohol in me, and you know what? One thing could lead to another, and guess what? I'm out rioting. Like it's possible. I don't think that would happen, but no one who goes out in riots, I think, goes out, especially in terms of a sporting event, with the intention of rioting.
You're not in your right mind. You're pushed over the edge because we're going to blame the alcohol, the gummies, or the whippets, whatever you're taking, and go from there. But Nebraska may be in a vacuum for being anti-rioting.
Well, do you think rioting would fly around here?
No, absolutely. I think the fans would police themselves.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Husker fan Bob would grab crazy Elijah by the shirt collar and say, "Son, we don't do that here. Mm-hmm. Here's a cold one," and I think away you go. But no, it's that's fair. That's a mentality thing.
It's a mentality thing, but I'm not pro-rioting. I want to make sure I make that clear. I'm not.
You're going to come to the show tomorrow. Not pro-rioting.
Well, imagine that political platform with today being election day. Yeah, I am pro-rioting. It just doesn't go over well.
We don't need it.
No, you don't need it in society. But one thing leads to another, and it happens.
Mm-hmm. It happens. Let's talk a little bit of the practice today. It was open, a third session, a third viewing for Nebraska media. I did not get down there. My morning show didn't end until 9. That's all right. Nick chimes in Omaha. He was up there with the 94 championship team, the 95 Orange Bowl. In Omaha, it was pretty peaceful. I remember a dude climbing up the street light on 72nd and Dudley. I remember seeing a picture of that in his underwear. But everybody was happy. And that's just it. There's a joy. There's, I think, a camaraderie. There's camaraderie that just went the wrong direction in Storrs, Connecticut. You tell me this. I don't remember. We were out there for the Avs last year in Colorado. Did they win it on the road? Did they win the cup on the road?
They did.
So, okay. There was fun. But did Denver police have to deploy tear gas?
I don't believe so.
Not this time?
I don't believe so.
Not this time. It has happened in the past. Cub fan, Connor, did the tear gas become a thing when the Cubs won the World Series for the first time in 100-plus years?
I don't think so, actually, which is kind of looking back on it now, too, now that
Are you sad about that?
No. No, well, I was 14 when it happened, so now, like, looking at it as a person who's of age perspective, it's kind of surprising because, like, even on the day of the parade, which was 2 days after the fact, there were 5 million people there, and none of that, at least reported, none of that stuff happened, which is crazy.
Everyone's still drunk and happy.
Like, yeah, I guess it was more so like, look, and obviously the demographic comes into play there too because, you know, UConn, bunch of college kids going nuts, your team just won a national championship. Okay. The Cubs thing was more like, yeah, there were a ton of fans like me, but it was more so for like 50, 60, 70-year-olds that have been just waiting for this forever.
Their whole life.
And they're not going to do that, right? They're like, yeah, they're going to get drunk and be happy, but they're not going to flip over a van, right?
No.
So, I mean, the celebration was great.
It'd be a sight, though. You see a bunch of 85-year-olds that have been waiting since 1908.
Barstool would eat that up real quick.
They would help, yes. It'd be all right. But no, then there's Philly fan. I mean, Philly fan took it to a whole new level of grotesque with the police horses and it was just wrong.
But at the same time, like
they throw batteries at Santa.
Like
they do.
We talk about the anger factor though, but like if Nebraska wins the national championship, I'd avoid.
There was no rioting after the Florida State screw job in the '94 Orange Bowl.
After 25 years of Nebraska football being lost in the wilderness, what would happen? Like I'd probably avoid North Bottoms. Oh, and that's no offense to the North Bottoms neighborhood.
No, absolutely.
But college kids fueled by
you would be there.
Everclear and Barton's. It's a dangerous combo down there.
It could get ugly. It could get ugly.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you've been to the North Bottoms recently, Schmidt, for like game of the year.
No, it's been North Bottoms. No, I mean, I've been to a few backyard parties back in the day, but we're working probably 25 years ago.
Yeah, I don't know.
Is it a little more... you better have a tat.
No, it's not like that. But I think I'm with Elijah here too. If like you combine that,
they get after it.
Well, yeah.
I feel like they probably, and I can't speak to 25 years ago, but since the res closed, the North Bottoms has been getting after it more and more. And there's been a lot more people down there that they aren't even making it to the game. They're just there to drink and pass out in somebody's backyard.
And I think the combination of that and like the population of students that actually like really pay attention to the football team, which I would beg to say is the majority, probably like 90% of the population of students. I mean, think about, at least in my college tenure, the frustration that's been surrounding the football team, right, and the results. And then you go back to, 25 years of, not performing at the level that many people think you should be performing at. I think you combine all that, and then obviously, as Elijah said, maybe some, Kool-Aid and Everclear.
Okay,
I mean, things could go south.
Some Borgs.
Yeah.
You're still in college. You're just out of college. And your best Nebraska team was the 09 Sioux team.
Yes.
Okay, and I barely even know that.
Right. You were 10-4, and you finished in the teens, and you won some. You lost a couple of heartbreakers, and they were kind of really fun to watch with Sioux. There you go. So 10-4. You don't know on the cusp of the title. You don't even know really a Big Ten championship. So maybe I'm naive to think it would be respectful. I just think I know how it would be modeled by older Nebraska fans.
Well, I don't think Nebraska would ever reach the point that we've seen with
It wouldn't turn
UConn
into
or
stores.
Philly.
I don't think
No.
it'd be that bad,
No.
but it would still be pretty rambunctious.
There might be some couches that get burnt. Probably no cars getting flipped, though.
Yeah.
But some of those couches really do need to be put out of their misery.
Yeah, that is true. I'm doing them a favor.
Right? I mean, those, you're going to have a rash for a long time if you pass out on that one.
But
Just don't pass out face down.
I don't know. Once Borgs get involved, and I'm not sure if Borgs are your time, Schmitty.
What's that?
It's you get a half
That's
bottle
like a
of
newer
water,
thing.
like a half gallon of water, and you fill it up with an entire thing of Mio, and you fill it the rest of the way to the top with either some cheap vodka or Everclear. And Borg stands for Black Outrage Gallon.
Oh, okay.
You have to name it too.
Yeah.
That has the word Borg in it.
Yeah, you missed out, Schmitty.
Dude,
in your college days.
I'm learning. I'm just learning here. I'm taking notes.
The dangerous thing with Borg, they don't taste like alcohol. No part of them does, and it's like
Okay, I can't speak.
there's
to
like
that.
a whole thing of
People
Everclear in there.
would just buy giant the giant gallon garbage cans, and you dump your rent was to pour a bottle in, and then there'd just be a bunch of either frozen fruit or fruit, and it was
It's like jungle juice, essentially.
Big Red Punch.
Big Red Punch, that works.
There you go.
I mean that was a thing. We won't get into the 90s Husker basketball drink of choice, but we will talk basketball. Andy Markowski is with us. Great to be with you on a Tuesday. It's Hail Varsity presented by Currency.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Back into it. It's Hail Varsity Radio. We're presented by Currency. Let's welcome in the Pride of Ord, Husker basketball standout, assistant at Pius, Andy Markowski. And I believe in the backpack is some suntan lotion and lime because you're going to some place that it's warm and sunny for consecutive days.
Yeah, trying to sneak away for a week and heading south of the border with the family here.
Nice. Wonderful. We are not going to see Andy Markowski on Locked Up Abroad. That'll be big. You're just going to have time with family and friends, and that'll be good. Okay, Andy, it's been a whirlwind of a basketball season. What'd you think of the men's tournament? What'd you think of UConn last night?
Well, certainly, I thought it was a great men's tournament, unpredictable as always. Maybe the hardest for the prognosticators to try to get a pulse of who could win it. But certainly when the tournament started, UConn looked really good, and certainly they finished it last night with a dominating win over a very physical San Diego State team. I give San Diego State credit. I thought they cut it to 6, and that was really the first time UConn was, probably going to feel any game pressure. And I was kind of anxious to see how they would handle it. And, I think they responded with a 6 or 7-0 run on their own to push it back into double figures and won the title. And I don't think anybody would argue that they certainly was the best team in March.
They had a little bit of a lull mid-season after a phenomenal start, and they had some just incredible consecutive wins over some tournament teams. Then they, for whatever reason, drifted off, and then they got hot at the right time. But UConn, what is it, Andy, about UConn being able to win like they have? A 5th championship since 1999, 3 different coaches. And, I mean, Storrs, Connecticut isn't, well, it's not New York City. It's not it's not Palm Springs. I mean, it's a tough place, at least on paper to me, to recruit to.
Yeah, we played out there. Richard Hamilton and that group before they won the title in '99. We actually played out there in the quarterfinals of the NIT in '97. And to your point, I was kind of surprised on how remote. Obviously Hartford is a city, but that campus and that arena is set up outside in the middle of nowhere. So, to echo that, I do think, the history of that program, in the last 25 years means something in recruiting. You look at the caliber of NBA players I think they beat Nebraska, in 91, right? We've had them in the NCAA tournament, and they had some NBA guys, as far back as 91. So I certainly think that helps their brand, especially, around that northeast corridor with some talented, basketball players. But, before the NCAA tournament started, you and I, had talked about who could win it. And, I've always said it takes 3 NBA, caliber guys, and they had 3 of those dudes, and they played really well. They had some ancillary pieces, and I think Coach Hurley did a really nice job of surrounding talent with some real guys, and they appear to be together. But why can they do it, and maybe other schools, i.e. Nebraska? Not saying that Nebraska can win a national title. They seem to have some inherent disadvantages in location, and they've been able to overcome that with tradition. But they have some talent. They've had talent, and certainly I think I saw the preseason odds going into the next year, and I think they're the Vegas favorite again. So I think they're planning on some of that talent to return and play again next year for them.
Andy Markowski's with us, Hail Varsity Radio, at Markowski_Andy is where you find him on Twitter. And we're talking, putting a wrap on the college basketball season. Hunter Salas is in the portal as we talk. No announcement, weighing his options. And I've got the list here of schools that have been in contact, from Arizona State to Creighton to Cal to Dayton and Drake and Georgetown and Nebraska and San Diego State, St. John's, Ole Miss. It's going to be a style of play thing, and Hunter found his role and was kind of the 6th man, didn't score a ton, just shy of 5 a game, but was in important moments for this Gonzaga team, Andy, and was really, really talented defensively, really embraced that role. I think wants to get a little more offense in his repertoire with mid-range and 3, and, of course, as athletic as he is getting to the rim. What's your reaction to Hunter's transfer, and do you think Lincoln and Fred could be the fit? I've listed a bunch of other options he could thrive at because he's such a talented ball player.
Yeah, certainly I don't know if he anticipated that role when he chose Gonzaga. Right. I think he looked at their, offensively, I think they led the country in scoring this year. And I think that probably appealed to him coming out of high school, kind of an open, an open style, fast. Unfortunately he had some, probably some better players ahead of him. And he was, I'll give him credit, right? I mean, he found the role that Coach Few wanted him to play, but I don't think he was content to stay in that role any longer. So to answer your point, I don't know where, Nebraska wasn't in the top 10 when he kind of announced that before he made the final decision. I got to believe that needs of all those schools have changed, and I think the one thing that Nebraska would have for him is it would allow him to come back home, even though his mom did move, out to Washington with him and had that support group. I think having Bryce McGowan's here for a year is a lot like Hunter. If you put tape on, I think Hunter could see himself in Bryce, and Fred got Bryce into the NBA, and Bryce just signed a 3-year contract. So I think that would give Fred an opportunity to sit down and showcase kind of how they featured Bryce and what they could do with Hunter. I think Hunter's probably a little bit better defender, and now that he's played 2 years of college, he's playing harder than he played in high school. I think he's playing harder than Bryce McGowan's played defensively at times. So, I think that would resonate with them. But he's going to have a lot of suitors, a lot of teams trying to showcase how they could use his skill set offensively. And, I don't think it's going to take long. My guess is it's 3 or 4 weeks and he'll find a new home. And, I do think Nebraska has a need, at that position. I would love to see a Nebraska kid, come back and help the program.
You saw Sam Griesel do it, and Nebraska had a better year than they've had in a while. You have Sam Hoiberg, who found his role, his niche, and was a spark. Those are 2 instances, Andy, of local kids or Nebraska kids that contributed to Nebraska basketball. You're one of those kids as well, not that far removed from the Devaney Center and being on tournament teams. Nebraska's got to start again somewhere, don't they? With keeping in-state talent. Creighton does a great job of getting a lot of the Metro kids, and you've seen kids go elsewhere. It's going to take winning on the court, first and foremost for Nebraska, but two, do you think there's more of a top of mind now for Nebraska with Fred here? What's your read? Is Fred prioritized in-state kids? It's just not been able to get them. Has that been the story with Nebraska in-state talent?
Yeah, I don't think they have failed to recruit in-state kids. Unfortunately, Fred's there at a time where, Creighton is at their mountaintop, right? Where they, they've had some inherent advantages of success. I look at Shireman, coming back as well. They were able to kind of plug him into the one role they needed. I look at Trout coming back and just the momentum that Creighton had, going to the Elite Eight. Those are hard things to overcome for Fred. Certainly he's got to start winning the battles to get some of those kids. I think, it's one thing that you've tried, but I think is to be in the in-state school, you've got to get your share of in-state kids that can help you win. I mean, you just can't take in-state kids to take in-state kids. You've got to, take kids that you feel can win and help you in the Big Ten. And, we've missed, Jason Green was another one that stayed and went to Creighton. So, they've gotten the better of us with some of these in-state kids. And, I think Fred, I know Coach Linser has really prioritized that. I know he's been active, recruiting, in-state kids. But, you just can't take an in-state kid to take an in-state kid. I think you have to make sure that they can help your program and help your program win in the Big Ten. And, I think Trout was, one of those kids have been nice to get back. So maybe a Salas. I know John Tanya just, went from Colorado State to Missouri. I thought maybe he was a kid that could help our front line. So they're out there, and, Fred's going to have to figure out the right formula to convince those kids to come to Lincoln versus going elsewhere.
A few minutes, Andy Markowski with us. It's Hail Varsity Radio. You can find the show streaming, Hail Varsity YouTube channel, the Hail Varsity Twitter handle at HVarsity Radio. Give that a follow. Find Damon and Andrew morning 7 to 10. Also on that Twitter handle, Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, and Connor Clark. More with Andy Markowski. We'll get his take on the women's championship, the numbers that LSU and Iowa drew, the reaction, the aftermath. Of course, Caitlin Clark doing outside the lines today, taking the high road and turning down the invitation to the White House.
Well, kind of invitation. That wasn't like. Did you look into this?
I just saw the headline.
It was Jill Biden.
I won both of them. Yeah. Well, no, and Caitlin Clark's like, dude, no, we didn't win anything. The second place team doesn't show up to the White House.
Yes, exactly. I think this is just Jill Biden being like, oh, like everybody's a winner.
Just say it.
Yeah. Participation trophy.
Yeah, participation trophy. Jill Biden wanted to give out the participation trophy, and I do appreciate Caitlin Clark saying, no, that's not how sports work.
No, it isn't.
Especially at this level. Hey, if you're
winner, you have a loser.
Competition works.
That's fair. We'll get some thoughts from Nebraska's running backs coach, E.J. Barthel. Also, this hour and next, Tom Shatel's coming up in a couple more minutes with Andy Markowski. A reminder about your friends at Dyer Law. Personal injury, if you've been hurt in a personal injury accident, you can count on Dyer Law and the team to provide you with a helping hand when you need it, no matter what you're dealing with. Call Dyer Law and the team today at 402-393-7529 or visit dyer.law to chat with a trusted professional about your personal injury claim. That's dyer.law, D-Y-E-R.law, 402-393-7529. They'll take care of you if you've suffered that personal injury and you need representation.
Even if it happens in a riot.
Andy Markowski on the way. Hail Varsity continues.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Andy Markowski's with us, Hail Varsity Radio, putting a bow on basketball season. Andy, I want to talk women's basketball. First and foremost, 9.9 million tuned into Iowa LSU. riveting basketball as you had Iowa and Caitlin Clark get the Hawks to the championship game. Of course, Kim Mulkey, no stranger to cutting the nets down at LSU. What do you remember about the women's tournament? Do you look at the 9.9 and smile for the women's game, or has it been overshadowed a bit by the taunting, trash-talking discussion that's followed the tournament between Reese and Clark?
Well, I think that incident will blow over. I certainly think women's basketball, was elevated this season. I look at some of the Big Ten game numbers, and there was record amount of viewers for some of the Big Ten matchups as well. The amount of Big Ten games that had over 10,000 fans. You look at the millions that tuned in to watch the Final Four and the finals. Certainly, Caitlin Clark, moves the needle, right? Sure. I mean, I've had a chance to watch her since, 7th grade. Alexis, played just a year behind her. So all the AU tournaments and, watching her growth and, continually develop as a, she may be the best women's basketball player in the world right now. I mean, it's hard to argue her talent. So certainly, she is a big reason for that. But, I think it has brought a lot of new viewers into the game, and hopefully you can continually build on that momentum. Certainly having the officiating crew they had, was that the best evaluated crew throughout the season? I would have doubts on that. I think we have to be careful. I think that took away from the game, having maybe officials that didn't have the experience to handle the level of that game, or somebody that has the demeanor of Kim Mulkey. I think they made a mistake on, the assignment of that game, or maybe what they're trying to accomplish with the crew. And that certainly has reflected negatively on what, could have been a historic moment of women's basketball. But I think that blows over, and, Caitlin Clark is back, and South Carolina will be back, and LSU obviously is back, and, all those storylines will carry through the summer and the next winter. And, having 3 daughters, I think it's exciting for women's basketball, and fans that haven't witnessed it, they understand that there's some pretty talented, women basketball players, and they're able to do a lot of fun things on the court that has attracted viewership.
It was an incredible watch and run for the women's game, and I know you've smiled about the growth and what Nebraska's got cooking with Coach Williams and company, and it's been a ton of fun to watch your daughters play ball, Andy, and that number's super impressive and will continue to grow. And you're right, there's a lot of firepower back for the women's game for next season. Eddie, we'll let you get off to vacation. Always appreciate you, man, your insight, your thoughts, and talking some basketball with us again this season, man. Thanks so much.
I appreciate you having me all here, Chris. Take care.
Good to spend time with Andy Markowski. Great perspective there on Hail Varsity Radio. Really appreciate Andy and his insight all season long. And, good on Andy. It wasn't necessarily the trash talk or the taunt that took away from him. He ain't wrong with the officiating, because that was as big a complaint about Sunday as maybe the last 90 seconds between Reese and Clark, because a lot of it was shifted, and there's even been some national columnists. Nicole Arbach is one columnist from The Athletic that I think of, and she's been a correspondent for years on the Big Ten for men and women. And her column today really touched on the disservice, which was the officiating, especially that technical foul in a 9-point game. We joke about the ref show a lot in college basketball, or TV Teddy, or go down the list. And listen, I'm not man enough to be an official. I'm not any good at it. From a criticism standpoint, I'm sure I could take it, but just being at that level, absolutely not. So I'm not qualified to be a football referee, a basketball referee, or an umpire. I am not. I can bitch and moan with the best of them from time to time about what's been called. But his point is spot on about, all right, did you really have the best refs in the game? Did the folks who earned a Final Four or a championship game for Sunday get there? And that's a fair take. It's a fair question.
On top of that, you can ask yourself the question, if that is what you felt was 3 deserving referees for that basketball game, why is there such a wide gap between the officiating between women's basketball and men's basketball in the NCAA? And that's a real question you need to look at, because the men's refs, based on my rudimentary research, which is not very much, but what I can find on the internet, shows me that the men's refs are much better compensated for their services than the women's refs are. Sure. So you have to look at that as a factor as well and say, well, why is this happening? No,
fair take. Fair take on that.
Well, it's a question of like, are you able to commit yourself? Because like being the experience of an umpire here, you need to get better. You need to get the reps in. You need to just do a lot of dang games.
And there's differences in level.
In order to get up those levels, you just got to do more basketball games. And in order to do more basketball games, apologize for the people on the stream who just saw me hit Schmidt's computer. In order to move up the levels, you have to work more games. In order to work more games, you need to make more money so you can turn it into a living, as opposed to just something you do on the side. Like me, you can't put me in the College World Series to go umpire because I literally just don't have the reps. I don't have enough time in a week that I can go do a baseball game, because this is my primary source of income. And you get up to those higher levels, a lot more of those people, their primary source of income is refereeing. And whenever you're not paying the women's basketball refs the same as the men's basketball refs, how are you going to be able to make that a living and make yourself the best referee, umpire, official you can be?
Well, Chuck Barkley made a really good point, too, during the championship game. And he's like, your best players are going to go overseas in the women's game to really get paid, to go play for a pro team in Europe, because it's not even a conversation with what you'd make in the WNBA compared to what you make abroad. Versus, look at all the guaranteed deals. You make a great living as a pro ball player overseas in the men's game. You're also in potentially some dangerous situations when you go to different parts of the world. That's true as well. But the NBA's going to compensate you. You're going to get the guaranteed money, whether you average 12-10 or 7-5. I mean, the salaries are absolutely ludicrous. We'll get to some Twitter responses. You can email the show, chris@hailvarsity.com. We'll spend more time on the Nebraska spring game. We've touched on the topic of rioting, why Nebraska fans just don't partake in it. And, hey, I love it. Nebraska fans, when they've won, have had a good old time, and it's not resulted in any flipped over vehicles, burnt furniture, or destroyed light posts. That wasn't the case with UConn. They've won quite a few titles in the last 25 years. About 15 minutes away, Tom Shatel joins us. Hail Varsity continues. We're presented by Currency.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
One final time this hour, Tom Shatel, Omaha World-Herald coming up. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, Connor Clark. Find us on Twitter at Schmidt_radio, at Herbal Essence for Elijah. And Connor Clark is at C_Clark_27. It's been a long, strange trip this hour with rioting, Nebraska fans not rioting when they've won titles. Celebrating, yes, not rioting. UConn going pyromania, as well as lots of arrests. And that is skilled work. I don't encourage it, but to rip down a lamppost like that and then go ramming speed on a glass door, wow. That is teamwork. That is teamwork.
That's one way to put it.
That is destruction of property and vandalism as well. Let's get an email, or I should say a text message in asking about or commenting on the topic of rioting. And this comes in from...
This is from Stephen.
Yep, Stephen. checks in. You have it up. I thought I did. I couldn't get to it. But Steven says, what about Iowa fan?
He's wondering how many more losses to Nebraska in football it would take for Iowa fans to start rioting because, in his words, they'd never win a national championship.
No natty? Yeah. There's been a lot of Nebraska grenades thrown at Iowa. I mean, they've relished watching Iowa come close and not close the deal. Now, I don't know that happens next year with Clark back. Football-wise, I'm safe to say they'll be pretty good, but they're not championship level. Who's on the horn?
We got Mike.
All right, let's get to Mike. Mike, go for it. Thanks for calling in.
I think you're underestimating Nebraska fans.
I'm going off of my history, but that's 25 years ago.
Well, I remember them tearing down goalposts and parading them around.
That's a great point.
Yeah, that's a goalpost, though, right? That's not taking a lamppost and busting into Morrill Hall.
Well, listen, I got a pickup out here they can flip over and burn anytime they want to win a national championship.
Mike, is it insured, or do you want me to ask that question?
Well, yes, it is.
You just don't like the pickup anymore, do you?
It's ready to go.
Hey, Mike, appreciate the phone call.
Mike, it's for the boys. I love that.
Mike's like, hey, let me park it right here for you. Well, I don't know what happened.
Hey, that's
Mr.
just
Insurance
Nebraskans helping out
Agent.
Nebraskans.
Yeah.
Right
Hey, not only is
good, clean American fun.
Is Mike going to spend his own gas money to show up and park in the arm of destruction?
You could have the rioters push it there.
He'll point it out for you.
He starts to chant, flip it, flip it.
My back hurts, son. I can't help you there. You guys go ahead. Here's a crowbar.
You call your insurance agent at 1 a.m. They're flipping my car.
I don't know what happened. You go to an Orange Bowl and you win, and all hell breaks loose. That was hilarious.
Thanks for that one, Mike.
It's like, I got a pickup for you.
Mike, we'll be in contact.
Pretty good. We will talk rioting topic with Tom Shatel and the idea of a live spring game. Nebraska will have a live spring game this year. They'll be hitting. But how about a live opponent not named Nebraska? An idea from Hugh Freeze and Andy Staples. We'll get into it next hour. It's Hail Varsity. We're presented by Currency.
The voice of Husker Nation is on the air. This is Hail Varsity Radio. Insight, opinion, expertise, along with the biggest names talking Nebraska sports. Join in with the show at 402-489-1240 or 1-800-825-5865. Now, here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt and Elijah Herbel.
Thanks for hanging out at Tower 2. It's Hail Varsity Radio. We're presented by Currency. For all your equipment financing needs, go Currency. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, Connor Clark, welcome in. Incredible columnist with the Omaha World-Herald. Tom Shatel back with us, and can find Tom on Twitter at Tom Shatel, OWH. Tom, did you request the weather? How are you today?
Good. What's going on at the Hail Varsity Club?
Well, I'm sure they're having folks out on the patio. They're enjoying the weather, and it is, a lot of smiles, man. Good time of year. Spring football's in full swing. You've got the Masters happening and another practice to talk about.
Well, Tom, you missed it. Earlier in the show, Schmidt was talking about shooting himself with a BB gun just to get outside, so I think we're a little bummed to be trapped inside right now.
I was jonesing for some golf, Tom, but 2 tee boxes later, I would have crawled back to the studio, I promise you.
Yeah, it's a little extreme, but it is a nice day, and I can find other ways to get outside besides that, hopefully. But it feels like spring, and I'm sure we'll get snow again next week.
So the topic of rioting's come up because of how UConn's reacted to their 5th championship in 25 years. And Tom, you were there for Nebraska's championships in the Osborne era, and I want to ask your thought here. What were your expectations with how Nebraska fans would react and handle a championship when they got that first one for Coach Osborne?
Yeah, I had no idea. And, I'm sure nobody else did either because 1971 had happened a long time ago. So I don't know. I came back and I heard about people running around 72nd and Dodge, which back in 1994 was sort of the center of town. It was, now I don't know where you'd do it. Maybe you'd do it at 204th and Dodge or something. But it was crazy. I just remember it was just surreal to cover so many times when they didn't win it and they won it. Like, now what am I supposed to do? And I feel like a lot of fans were kind of like that too. Like, this actually happened. So it was great. And I just remember that on the shows, radio shows, and everything else was like, okay, what about next year? They didn't last long.
Yeah, go win it again, and they did. Tom Shatel's with us, Omaha World-Herald, Hail Varsity Radio. You can find Tom on Twitter at Tom Shatel, OWH. Tom, want to get into the observations today, the third time the media's had a chance to watch Nebraska. And so far through this spring, what's your impression of this new staff? What sticks out to you most from a positive standpoint? What do you like, what you're hearing or seeing from Rule and his crew?
Yeah, I haven't been able to get out there to see the actual workouts. I was out of town the first week at the NCAA tournament, and then I'm not able to get there at quite at 8 a.m., although I did the very first day. I got there, I think, at 7 a.m., and I think I swore I would never do that ever again. So I'm probably not going to watch the stretching and the guys running around. But these guys are unbelievable. I told Trev Alberts this. He asked me what I thought. I said, Trev, these guys they're more Nebraskan than any staff that I've seen here since Solich. They had Milt and Darlington and all those guys still. You guys are not only saying all the right things, you're doing all the right things. My line is, I just hope they can coach. Because if they can coach, this might be a lot of fun. Because they're, one thing I like about them is today, for instance, we talked with Ed Foley, who's easily my favorite assistant coach. I don't mind saying that. He's Jersey Ed is a straight shooter, and just kind of a guy you'd probably want to have sit down and hang out with. But he went into great detail about special teams, about punting, about the wind, about the workouts. I asked him about the punt returns. I'm going to do a column about the punt returns, and he gave me detail about what they're looking for, what they want, what the guy has to do. Just on and on and on. And it's been like that with every coach. These guys know what they want, and they go in great detail. And the head coach starts with the head coach. He loves talking football, and he will explain things and go into detail about everything. And I keep using the word detail, and that to me is the most encouraging sign so far, that they do go into detail, and that leads me to believe, and maybe I'll be wrong on this, but that there is great attention to detail being made here. So that's what the program has lacked forever, is doing things the right way, and there's a way to do it. I feel like there's a plan, and I haven't heard a plan from coach in a long time. So very encouraging stuff. But it's April 4th. It's not September 4th, and so there's a long way to go. But I like the fact that they want to find guys who can compete, and they want to get physical. They want to basically just, hammer away. That's the new style, meets the new boss, same as the old boss, hammer away. And so that's all I want to see this spring, and I think that they're on the right track.
Tom Shatel's with us here at Hail Varsity Radio. And Tom, I love what you say about this staff having a plan. I think the big difference is that the staff hasn't come in saying, well, our plan is just going to be the same as the last place. That they have a new and clear plan for how it's going to work at Nebraska. And I think that's the big difference. And to your point, we've learned plenty about the coaching staff and their plans this spring. But you're a guy who's been around a ton of spring practices at Nebraska, and I want to get your take on just how much we're actually going to learn about this team and how good it can be this spring, or if you think we're going to have to wait till early August or even late August to figure out how good this team actually could be.
Yeah, I don't think we'll know anything. I really don't. I think we'll, and I don't think that they'll know anything either. I think the idea this spring is to find out again who wants to compete, who has the high motor, and who doesn't. Who's going to do the extra work? Who's not? And frankly, I don't think it's going to be all Oklahoma drills 24/7. Because they don't want to get everybody hurt, but I think they're going to find out who wants to hit, and who's going to deliver pain, and who likes it. And like I said, talent has a way of getting on the field, but so does the guys who want to compete, the guys who hate to lose more than they like to win. Mm-hmm. Those are the kind of guys who also get on the field. So I think they'll be sorting all that out. Certainly they'll be looking at the positions. They're very careful to not, say who's ahead or anything. And of course, we'll all be paying attention to the quarterback, Jeff Sims, and where's he going to fit in? And, and on down the line. I just don't think we're going to know enough about the scheme and tendencies, what kind of priorities they have on the quarterback run game, how many carries a running back will have, and frankly, a lot of that starts with the offensive line. So they need to figure that out first. So I think it'll be somewhere driving between Minnesota and I guess Boulder, Colorado, we'll have a better idea. And then I think after Boulder, Colorado, we'll even have more of an idea. So, but it's again, I can't picture the offense. And maybe it's a good thing. Maybe I don't have any kind of preconceived notions or expectations for it. I just don't know what they like to run. I've not heard about the fullback, heard about the tight ends. These are all things I think we're going to find out as we go. But spring game, I don't expect to really come out of that with any great, image or whatever of the season. I think we're just going to. It's just going to be, it's a long-term project. They want to go to a bowl. Right now, I'd probably pick them to go 4-8 or 5-7. Just because they've never won. I don't know what's going to happen. But I think you have to there's no expectation right now. You just want to see a good football next year. So, and let all the chips fall where they may. So I think coming into that, out of the spring, I think we'll just say, okay, this is a building block year, or spring. They put a lot of stuff in. They're wanting to find out who wants to be here, who doesn't. And, that's it. I don't think we're going to learn too much more. I mean, the defense will all be trying to overanalyze the scheme and the formation. And I don't care about the 3-3, 8-8, 2-5-2, whatever the hell it's going to be. 8-6-7-5-3-0-9 defense. I don't know what it's supposed to be. All I know is I want to see 11 badass dudes chasing the ball. That's Nebraska's defense. That's the Black Shirts defense right there. It was never about trying to write scheme. I mean, good work. Some of us are old enough to remember Major Applewhite's comment about Charlie. Well, it's not rocket science. And everybody thought it was a slap. but it was a compliment, and that's how Charlie took it. It was never about the scheme with Charlie. It was, they asked the 4-3 helped, unlock a lot of things in the 90s. It was more about the players in the 90s, the guys on defense. So, I'm anxious to see if linebackers are like safeties, or if they have a bunch of hybrid guys running around, or I don't know. I'm absolutely babbling here. I don't have a lot of expectation for what we're going to see this fall.
Well, Tom, along with that, do you think we'd get a better idea of what Nebraska could be if there was a live opponent for the spring game? There's a good article in The Athletic this week about that after Hugh Freeze mentioned the fact of he'd love to see that, you get an actual opponent in for your spring game. Say Nebraska was playing Kansas this year in Memorial Stadium here in a couple of weeks. Does that idea intrigue you, and do you think we'd learn more from that?
I love it. I've written that before. Other people have too. But I don't think Hugh Freeze has talked too much with too many of his colleagues. I've never seen a coach who wanted to do that. A, because they don't want to get anybody hurt. B, they don't want to lose. You lose the spring game to KU, then everybody's in a bad mood. It's like, oh my God, we got enough problems so I'm losing the spring game to Lance Leipold. Although they should have hired him. No, I mean it's I've never heard a coach, but it's for fans and media. We would love a game because we can't wait for games, and so I think an exhibition game would be great. The problem is, maybe they could do it like the basketball teams do. But those are always private because they don't want to know. They don't want anybody to know who won or lost. Mm-hmm. That's why those are private. So, but a lot of times those scrimmages are set up to where it's controlled. Mm-hmm. Where I'll run this. I'm going to run this offense now. Would you please run this defense? And like KU would run a certain defense, so Matt Rule can see what he's got, and then vice versa. Nebraska would run whatever KU wanted. That's kind of what you'd see, and then you'd probably see a bunch of guys in the second half, kind of like a spring game. The third team guys would be out there. So, here's the deal. Maybe we can convince these coaches, we won't keep score. But the problem is somebody would keep score. Somebody in the stands would find out who scored more and who, it would be a lot of fun. But I don't think Hugh Freeze. I think Hugh Freeze hasn't talked to enough people. I don't think Nick Saban wants to play anybody. How about a Georgia-Alabama spring game?
Saban, Hugh Freeze volunteered, I think, North Dakota State for Saban. Tom, we're up against a hard break. Can you hang on for 2 minutes on the other side, and we'll wrap the interview, bud? All right, hang on. Appreciate your time. Great columnist Tom Shatel joining us here on Hail Varsity Radio. Find Tom on Twitter at Tom Shatel, OWH. Love his insight. And loved it. We've gone rioting. We've gone live spring game. And he is so on with, I think, the feel that a lot of Nebraska fans have. This staff is Nebraskan. That's the feel. And Tom's right. They're saying all of the right things. And if they can coach, and I think they can coach. We'll hear from E.J. Barthel coming up here before we are done at 6. On Hail Varsity Radio. Live stream is there, the Hail Varsity YouTube channel where you can watch the show. You can hear us across the state, of course. The Hail Varsity Radio Twitter handle at HVarsity Radio. Find us at Schmidt_radio, at Herbel Essence for Elijah, and at C_Clark_27 for Connor Clark. More with Tom Shatel next.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Thanks for spending time at Hail Varsity Radio, presented by Currency. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, Connor Clark, Tom Shatel, Omaha World-Herald, hanging on a little bit of overtime with us here. And Tom, we've touched on spring ball and the rioting part of winning a championship, but it's not in the Nebraska vocabulary, and even the live spring game. Connor wanted to jump in before we say goodbye.
Yeah, and it's kind of going along with the live spring game, and I don't know. I think that has its advantages and disadvantages. My thought, and I want to get your take on this, is you know how NFL teams have practices against each other, not really a game, but more so of a practice with different drills. What if college teams start doing that? How would that pique your interest if they let fans in the building to watch that?
Yeah, I think it'd be great. And again, you would it would not be a deal where you're keeping score. But I think that'd be fun. I just don't know what would be the advantage for the teams to do that. I guess to see somebody else. And I think I don't know if they would agree to that or not. Again, they do it in the basketball. They have a scrimmage and it's controlled, but they shut everybody out. Yeah, I'd be in favor of it. But it's not like you'd see a lot of play calling or scheme. I mean, the one advantage that rule has over Minnesota right now is they have no idea what he's going to do. They know they've got Baylor film, they've got Temple film. That doesn't do a whole heck of a lot of good right now. While he's got Minnesota film, and he knows just what they do every year. So, get a spring game or something like that. You might see PJ Fleck up in the press box with a mustache and with sunglasses or something. He's trying to sneak in and take notes. But that's why the spring game will be on the Big Ten Network, but it'll be vanilla with a whole lot of vanilla. So, because again, he's got an advantage right now. Nobody knows what he's going to do, and frankly, I'm not sure he knows what he's going to do yet because he doesn't. The offensive line is not set, the running back is not set, and more importantly, the quarterback has not been chosen. So, I'm really excited about that August. The 29 practices we get in August, what kind of move Casey Thompson makes. He doesn't run the ball like apparently Jeff Sims does, and these guys, I think, want to have a quarterback run game. But Casey Thompson, man, he makes plays, and he does that so well. So just good things happen when he's out there. He makes a lot of plays, and so coaches love guys like that. So that's going to be a real interesting thing in August. But, yeah, I don't know. We'll keep pushing it,
Some momentum.
Maybe we'll get a scrimmage. I'd just like to have they used to have open scrimmages, not the spring game, but like the 2 weeks before. They used to do that. And I wouldn't mind seeing Nebraska go to Kearney and have a scrimmage, or that would mean putting everybody on a bus and cost money to do all that stuff, but maybe have like part of a training camp somewhere else, but around the state. But yeah, I think you're onto something, but just don't let those guys. Just make sure they think there's going to be a winner and loser. Ain't no way it's going to happen.
Well, we could fire up the Northern Iowa Joe Gans Bowl, maybe something like that. Tom, real quick before we say goodbye, and I know it's more of a prediction versus a certainty, but with the Nebraska running back room, do you think Nebraska has a body in that room that could be a difference maker running the football? Do you like the talent enough or the potential enough to have somebody they can lean on to run the ball?
Yeah, boy, this is really in my wheelhouse, Chris. I was talking about this today, and I didn't get to ask EJ today. I went over to see Foley, but I want to ask him if he had a back. I mean, if he wants the back to have the majority of the carries or not. I think that's kind of interesting. Or how important is the pass blocking? From Scott Frost, the pass blocking was paramount. You couldn't get on the field without it. Frankly, I think Nebraska has become too much about quarterbacks and receivers and needs to get back to being about offensive line and the running back. And you haven't had a guy like Abdullah since Abdullah, and you need to have a guy like that in the Big Ten. Or I don't even know why you're trying. You need a guy who can get, when it's 3rd and 3, he's going to get 3 yards. And everybody knows it. He knows it. And it certainly plays into the offensive line, too. But I think, I think Grant could be that guy. I think maybe Urban could be that guy. Mm-hmm. We have not seen them in an offense where the running back is sort of about them. And they have a good offensive line. And certainly the line can make the running back look better, but the running back can also make the line look better. And so I just feel like we've watched offenses that were, the running back had to pass block, and that's, that can't be the main priority. It should be the running back should be able to run. And if you had Billy Sims or Mike Rozier, would you just want him to pass block? No, you want him to run. So I think Nebraska needs to get back into that. I think they will, and I think they have, potentially have a couple guys. But the offensive line has to play into that too. But and they have to. It's got to be a priority. You got to be physical. They haven't been physical forever, so all that stuff kind of ties in together. But I think they do. But we'd have to have certainly a better look at the offensive line, and we'd have to move people out and be a lot better than they've been. But we'll see that may be on the way.
Tom Shatel with us, Omaha World-Herald, at Tom Shatel, OWH on Twitter. Tom, we'll see you soon. Thanks for some extended time today. Always fun to chat with you, bud.
Thanks, guys. I'll see you at the club sometime.
Absolutely. Anytime, man. We'd love to have you back. Appreciate you, Tom. Tom Shatel with us here on Hail Varsity, 489-1240. You can join the show. But a lot of topics, a lot of questions here. With that run game, and he isn't wrong, man. What are you going to build your offense around? And the offense needs to be built around a competent offensive line, and then pick a back. Give me the wee backs, brother, if you're a Nebraska fan. I'm dating myself, but give me Derek Brown and Calvin Jones. Give me a stable of backs that were all-world, and then have a little more than competent quarterback, guy that can make some plays and take care of the football, and then you're running downhill in the Big Ten in November.
Well, and obviously that's going to be easier with a balanced attack, as you've seen teams, load up the box, 8-9 guys with Iowa football last year, knowing the fact that Spencer Petras was not going to beat them deep. That just wasn't going to happen.
The threat was not there.
The threat was not there. So you have to have the threat of a passing attack, obviously. But I agree. It starts up front with that rushing attack. That's how you're going to find success, not only in the Big Ten, but really in college football as a whole. And it's not a one-size-fits-all solution. You're going to find teams that, they have a powerful, explosive offense. They are good for 600 yards a game. It doesn't matter what you do with the ground attack and the time of possession. They still have the ability to beat you. So it's not one-size-fits-all, but it's a damn good place to start. And that's where we're at right now. We're at the start of a rebuild of turning this into what you want it to be. So I think the end goal is always balance. And as we've heard a lot this spring, balance is almost just a buzzword, and it's easier said than done. So what can that offense look like in terms of the balance? Because there's multiple different ways you can find balance.
Well, and listen, what you're gonna see during the spring game is a reshaped offensive line. It may not be your 5 starters, but you're going to see elements of the starting 5, or for sure the 7 or 8 they want to play. And you're going to see guys that are slimmed down. You're going to see guys that are more mobile. Are they as mobile as maybe what Rule would want on the offensive line? Don't know yet. But this is kind of your first draft. And it's going to be an offensive line that is they're going to let Rule and Raiola and that run game work, and it's going to be Satterfield using the tight ends, using some H-backs, and really getting a good look. You've got a great luxury, as long as everybody stays healthy, in what Gabe Ervin's done with that size and speed, with the benchmark of 75 yards per fourth quarter, a minimum. That's great to speak out loud. You still got to go do it. And then, of course, we've seen Anthony Grant, and there was no commitment. There was no want to, really. It was, all right, let's just run it forward. I guess, damn it, got to run the football on 1st and 10 to run the clock. Because if Whip had his way, God love him, he'd probably throw it all the time on 1st down.
Well, and that's not necessarily what it looked like in the spring game last year. So that's why I want to talk about what can we learn from the spring game. I learned less of what the play calling actually is and more what type of formation are they going to be lining up in any
what are they
down
like
distance.
And what are they good at?
On 3rd and 1 in the spring game, are they lining up with 2 tight ends plus an H-back?
They're going empty.
One wide receiver. I mean,
Move ball
honestly
forward.
They're going empty.
Honestly, that's going to be a good indication, though, of what type of team this coaching staff thinks they have. You know what? 3rd and 1 in a spring game, maybe they're going to play their cards close to their chest and do something crazy. I don't know. Something tells me that's not the style of this coaching staff. I think on 3rd and 1 in a spring game, if they're going double tight with an H-back and a running back and only 1 wide receiver out wide, it's a damn clear indication of what type of team this coaching staff either thinks they have or wants to have this fall.
Well, you'll challenge your lines. It'll be a challenge to your offensive line, and it'll be a challenge to your front 6 or front 7 or front 8 or whatever they are in on 3rd and short. 489-1240, 489-1240, numbers to get in. You can email the show, chris@hailvarsity.com. I promise you we will get into that live scrimmage discussion, not Nebraska versus Nebraska. We've had a little bit of the discussion already with Tom Shatel, but on the other side, you'll get to hear the full Hugh Freeze take on spring football. What he threw out there, what Tom's written about, what Andy Staples wrote about with The Athletic, and we can mull it over. We could even have a draft, a little bit of a round table when Nebraska's ready, because they aren't ready right now to play anybody but themselves. But that isn't the case potentially in year 3, year 4, year 5. Reminder to get buckled up, use your seatbelt. It saves lives, prevents injuries only if properly worn. Buckle up, a message from the Nebraska Department of Highway Safety Office. More Hail Varsity continues, presented by Currency.
He's in his 30s, but sounds like he was born with a stogie in one hand and a brew in the other.
Now, say my name.
It's Schmidt on Hail Varsity Radio.
I got the body of a taut, preteen Swedish boy.
Back with you, it's Hail Varsity. We're presented by Currency. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, Connor Clark at the podcast, Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, the whole show or segments of the show. Andy Markowski and Tom Shatel on today's program. The full show video at the Hail Varsity YouTube channel. Also post-practice thoughts and video from Aaron and Brady and the crew as well. The Hail Varsity Twitter handle at HVarsity Radio. Give that a follow for the show. Morning show, of course, Damon and Andrew, 7 to 10. Hail Varsity afternoons, 4 to 6. Here is Hugh Freeze, Auburn head coach. Looks wore out already from spring football, but has a suggestion. Let's make it live. As one former anchor said, we'll do it live. Well, that's what Hugh's all about. Let's make it a real opponent, not just against ourselves.
I'm going to cry again for the solution to the solution is allow us to scrimmage somebody on a day, another team. And I think everybody would get out of it exactly what they want. And if everybody's doing that, then, and let's adopt a charity to give all the proceeds to. Let's take foster care in the state of Alabama or orphan care in the state of Alabama, and let's Alabama play Troy and we play UAB or vice versa or whoever, I don't care, or Alabama State or whoever, and people will come see that. And you're decreasing your injury possibilities by 50%. And coaches are smart enough to control, we're not going to hit each other's quarterbacks. We practice that way. And if you want to put a blue jersey or a different jersey on somebody that's don't take to the ground, we can do that. And I just think it would be great for the sport. I think it would be awesome. NFL gets to scrimmage against others. High schools get to scrimmage against each other. And I just, for the life of me, I don't understand why we haven't gotten to that point where we can pull that off.
Good for you. You. I want to see Noah Walters light up that Bama secondary. We want Bama.
I mean, I've had this conversation plenty with my roommate Darren. He's asked the same question.
We being Northern Alabama once.
Well,
Bama.
Yes. Not we being Nebraska.
Don't worry.
Be a rough spring game, I think. But like we've had this conversation before. Nebraska, it seems like in their scheduling, has been trying to find former Big 8/Big 12 foes to put in their non-conference schedule. Instead of doing that, why don't you find Kansas, Missouri,
K-State, Iowa State, North Dakota State, Northern Iowa.
A big group of Midwest teams. I'd even put Colorado in there.
UNK.
Just find a group of, like, say, 4 or 6 and just rotate around who you play every single spring. You know what? One year you play Kansas. Next year you play Missouri. You play NDSU or Colorado or Oklahoma. It doesn't matter
play
who's
North
in it.
Dakota again.
Again, this is what
Georgia
I'm saying.
Southern is not an option.
We don't want Clay Helton, that's for sure. But just do that and rotate who plays who every single year. Put it at Memorial Stadium. You know, whoever sells more tickets, put the game there, which is going to be Nebraska, and get it put on national television. And I agree with what he was saying. You put the quarterback in green jerseys or blue jerseys or whatnot. They don't get hit. You have a quick whistle. You tell the refs, hey, we want a quick whistle today. I don't see how this is any more dangerous than a normal spring game, A. And B, you're going to draw more eyes to the sport. More tickets are going to be sold for your spring game. The only downside is what Tom laid out. Well, what happens if you lose? You know what? What happens if you lose? The people in the media say, everyone calm down. It's a spring game. We only saw the starters for 2 drives anyway. Calm down. I think everyone would be fine with it, and they understand, you know what? If Nebraska loses a spring game, it really doesn't matter because it's a spring game.
I think the score is the thing I'm the least concerned about when it comes to that.
How do your 2s and 3s look against North Dakota's starters?
Right. Well, exactly.
If you're Bama, it's a motivational tactic.
It's that, and it's also like, yeah, I know you're going to put in, precautionary things to make sure that your players don't get hurt, but it's always, a risk that you're willing to take. And I guess if you play yourself, you're still taking that risk to a certain extent. I mean, I agree. I think it could draw more eyeballs. I think it would build, obviously there's already a lot of hype around the spring game here. I think it could maybe even create more. I think the only negative about that would be, well, what if Nebraska has to go somewhere else? Because if you run into a situation...
Nebraska would never have to leave because they could always find somebody.
That's true.
Or just partner up with a Big Ten partner.
Yeah.
I mean, just what it's,
UCLA, I'm kidding.
For the first time ever, the Buffs are going to have 30,000 people at their spring game. Okay? Usually there's been instances where there's not enough people to even host a spring game. With some of these Big Ten programs, that's the reality. So I love the idea. It's easier said than done, and I like the old shucks. You freeze back in college football. He's rubbing his eyes like he's been up for hours upon hours.
The thumbnail to that video is just fantastic.
For the people on stream, it's...
Yeah,
he's just
essentially.
All it's missing is a half bottle of whiskey. Sorry, you. Okay.
And maybe a couple... I'm not going to go there.
Just no. Hit the brakes, por favor. So let's get a comment here from E.J. Barthel. Nebraska's running backs coach asked today about a lot of things. Gabe Ervin, some names at fullback, but specifically the brand that Nebraska is going to have and going to be at running back cut 11 here. And it all starts with the mentality in the run game, and this is what you got to have. And he likened it to, I miss it, Coca-Cola at Memorial Stadium.
You like to use that blaster in practice, don't you?
That's right.
Do the boys?
What's right? What's that?
Do the boys like it when you take them over there?
They do now. I think that's part of the teaching too, right? The mental part of it, the mentality part of it. For us, whenever we recruit or whenever we coach, we're looking for guys that with the right mentality. And I think the running back position starts with mentality. I'm always going to believe that way. I think that you have to run the ball. When you go to a store, right, and you buy Coca-Cola, you know exactly what that bottle is going to taste like. When you see our running backs, right, I want us to have a certain DNA that you know exactly what you're going to get when you see our guys play. And I think that's what Coach Rule and the whole team, I think that's kind of what I think his vision is as well. All the Nebraska football players, when we touch that field, I think he wants everyone and ourselves to know the brand.
Real quick, do we have time? Cut 12 here, the accountability factor. Like this, because Rhule's preaching it to the kids. He's also making sure that it is a reality with his coaching staff.
Well, I think it's full transparency, right? I think, whenever you're working for a coach like Coach Rhule or a guy that's big on family, right? You got to mean it, right? There has to be a certain level of care there because we are intense as a staff. And the number one thing that my players and our players and Coach Rhule's guys have to understand is when we're coaching hard, it's coming from a place of care. Right, because this is a real thing here. This is not, something that we just put on a sign, right? The culture is a process and how we have to develop it. And it starts right there with building a relationship with your room and making sure your guys understand that where your intensity is coming from is a place of care. That's important. And it goes that way with coaching, right? Like Coach Rhule wants it right? And it's about getting the X and O's and the mentality correct and the effort correct. And it's nothing personal. It's nothing, once we're off the field, it's over.
And now,
back to Hail Varsity Radio.
One final time, podcast, Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, Hail Varsity Radio. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, Connor Clark. Thanks to Tom Shatel. Thanks to Andy Markowski. Mike Babcock tomorrow. Mike Schuhart will get us ready for the Green Jacket and the Masters, and Evan Bland will be with us. You can email the show, chris@hailvarsity.com. As Tom Shatel calls him, let's hear from Jersey Ed Foley, and an update with just where things are at. That was the theme today. That was running game, running backs with Coach Barthel and Ed Foley and special teams. How are things going with that third phase?
It's been good. They work hard. They know how to work. They listen. They want to be good. They play hard. So that usually leads to good special teams play. I think we'll be in good shape when it's all said and done. Me just trying to learn the players and kind of their attributes is something that's an ongoing process. So we're working on that. It's been good. It's been fun, and the periods have been competitive and the drills have been competitive. We've done mostly drill work, but I'm excited for the group.
So what did he learn in the NFL, and what did he bring from the NFL here? And a whole lot of attention to detail. That's obvious, guys, but it's got to be emphasized and practiced and kind of harped on and drilled on, and that's so far so good.
I'm much better than I was before I went to the NFL because you get to spend a lot of time with the actual specialists. So in the past, you're coaching the tight ends and you're trying to coach special teams, and then you're going around with the guys and you're meeting with them, but you don't have as much time. So when you're working with guys like Johnny Hecker and Zane Gonzalez and JJ Jansen, you're learning like the real ins and outs. With Hecker and JJ, you're learning at the highest level of things that are important to execute your job. So just the little nuances of the job. We were specifically today we were talking about the snappers getting their heads up so they can get into protection quicker, and a couple things that had gotten from JJ with regards to getting the head up so we can get into the protection as quickly as possible are things that I would not probably have talked about much 3 or 4 years ago that we can talk about. That's just an example. There's really a bunch of them.
Good from Jersey Ed. We're going to just borrow that nickname from Tom Shatel for Ed Foley. Guys, what are you doing tonight? I've been ordered to get stuff for the grill, assuming I won't blow away outside.
That sounds like a pretty good night.
You're neither invited.
I am personally.
Never mind.
Back off to my Tuesday night bowling league. Get this.
Tall boys?
No. You
White Russians?
It's going to be Waters from one Elijah Herbel.
What, last night was too rough?
No, it just does not fit the diet. There's a lot of calories in those drinks, Schmitty. And
I was whining to you about my diet, and I'm going to go fire up all sorts of red meat.
I only got like 6 weeks left, so I gotta push hard through the final stretch. No, we're only at 3.5 points out of first place now, so we've been eating up the ground.
Can you buy shots and pitchers for the team you're playing?
You can. And there is some strategy. Some people play some rules like that where if you leave certain pins on certain ones, like, you have to buy the whole group a round of shots, which is fun whenever you play it that way. It's going to be Waters for me. I am looking to get the Spring Valley Homes team, the Crown. I'm allowed to say that because they do. Well, it's my dad's company, and they sponsor the team, quote unquote. So the Spring Valley Homes team is bringing home the gold. We only have a couple weeks left of the season. 3.5 points out of first place, and we're going to eat some more ground up tonight. So looking forward to that.
I have an intramural soccer game, and I've never played one game of organized soccer in my life.
Yes, I will.
I'm going to make other people
roll in
flop.
with crutches. He got hurt. Talk to you tomorrow at 4. Thanks for tuning in to Hail Varsity.